The 1980s was a great decade to be alive in. Technology was starting to take us in a direction that many of us couldn't quite see. But life was pretty simple. We were just busy living our lives and trying to keep up with the latest trends. As time has passed, it's easy to forget about some of the things that we love. In this video, we will have a look back at some of the forgotten items from 1980s homes. Most people today get their favorite recipes on the internet through various websites, but if you're old enough, then I'm sure you can remember a time when that wasn't always the case. Many households used to have cookbooks, and Betty Crocker was probably the most popular one. But a lot of people stored the recipes of their most cherished dishes in little decorated wooden boxes. Usually these were the family recipes that had been passed down for generations, and they were written on little index cards. There's no doubt that a lot of these online sources are probably pulling from someone's recipe box. Many households today may not even have a clock on the wall thanks to how prevalent cell phones are. But in the 80s, every household had at least one clock to look at. There were all sorts of clocks that adorned the walls and shelves, but one of the more popular ones that could be seen were the dome clocks. These often gold timepieces had little balls that would spin back and forth at the bottom, and they were quite mesmerizing. These clocks were really fancy looking, and we could spend hours just staring at them. You can still buy these today, but they are not as popular as they were in the 80s. Slide projectors were something that many households had, and really they were just sort of a holdover from previous decades, but they were still just as popular in the 80s. Projectors became a lot less popular in the 1990s when computers and digital frames came in. I'm sure we all got suckered into viewing a friend or family member's slideshow that was from their vacation. We kind of had to suffer through it because later on we were going to make them sit through ours. Even if you did not have a projector in your household, then I bet you ran into one at school or work. I'm sure that kids today would not understand why we had them, but they really were pretty exciting. Remember when toilet paper came in different colors? This was really popular in the 70s and 80s, but it is definitely not something that you see anymore. Back then, toilet paper came in blue, green, yellow, pink, and some even had floral patterns. It was the perfect way to colorize your bathroom or coordinate with the colors that you already had in there. The dyes that were used in this colored toilet paper were not that good for females, and eventually companies stopped making it. Another item that we used to see in bathrooms of many homes were the knitted toilet roll covers. These were usually dolls that had a knitted dress which would cover a roll of toilet paper. Why did we do that? I'm not sure, other than just because we could. Surely it was not because we wanted to hide the colored toilet paper. Something else that became popular in the 80s was the Glade Spin Fresh, and it started appearing in bathrooms everywhere beginning in 1983. These were toilet paper roll holders that had little scented beads in them. Whenever someone used some toilet paper, it would spin the roll and emit a scented fragrance in the air. A lot of people loved them, but today people prefer some sort of aerosol poop spray. Cassette tape cabinets were something that everyone had in the 80s. In that decade, we all had a lot of cassette tapes and VHS tapes. Both of those items took up a lot of space, and these little storage cabinets were a great way to organize our collection so that we could show it all off to our friends and family. Do you remember these little tables that would fit underneath each other like Russian dolls? They were the perfect space-saving item for any living room, and if you happen to have company or need an extra table, then boom, it's right there. Kids also loved these because they could pull them out during Saturday morning cartoons and consume their favorite sugary cereals on top. The 1980s was all about collecting things, and this style of shelf was used to display all of your miniature items that you had accumulated. People filled them with whatever they were interested in, and it also made gift-giving easy. Just buy something small for someone, and then the next time you came over, you could see it on this shelf. Another collectible item that was in many homes were the frosted glass animals. They could be anything from hummingbirds to cats and everything in between. It seemed like people just couldn't get enough of them. Decorative geese was something else that flew into 80s homes. Many people had goose plates, glasses, pictures, figurines, and so much more. All of this seemed to be in the same sort of style. White geese with ribbons and blue accenting it. One other type of dish that we would see in homes were the blue willow pottery ones. This style could be on plates, bowls, coffee cups, and vases. It was like blue overload in many homes. If there were kids in the house during the 80s, then you probably saw some sort of cartoon bedspread. There were many different kinds to choose from, but some of the more popular ones were Care Bears, G.I. Joe, Rainbow Bright, Transformers, Strawberry Shortcake, and He-Man. If the kids were really lucky, then they probably had sheets and curtains to match. Coffee has always been something that people have enjoyed, but today it is much different. Many people have Keurigs or order their coffee from places like Starbucks. But in the 80s, we had big, bulky coffee makers in the kitchen that had clocks on them. People would prepare the coffee maker the night before so that it would automatically make it and have it ready to drink in the morning. If it was a really expensive model, then it would have a radio on it. And when we say coffee, we mean a whole pot of coffee, not just a single cup. Something else that was popular in the 80s were the black and white TVs. Most of them were holdovers from the previous decades, but they still worked, so we did not get rid of them. Not only that, but these were still sold in stores. They were the perfect television for your kitchen, and if you had one in your room as a kid, then it was probably black and white. The main TV in the house was always in the living room, and it was color, of course. Some households had computers, but for the most part they were fairly expensive, so they weren't all that common. Not everyone understood the need of having one, since this was before the days of everyone having internet at home. But one thing that was more common to see at home was the electric typewriter. A few people had the old mechanical ones, but the electrical ones made us feel fancy. Both were fun to play around with until you broke them. At that point, we just blamed it on someone else. The 1980s was certainly an interesting decade. Some of these items may seem a little bit goofy to those that never lived in the decade, but for many of us that's not the case. We have a lot of special memories associated with these items. What were some of the things that you noticed in 1980s households? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching.